Good morning, and it's a beautiful morning, and today we're going to talk about opposite action. Opposite action is a term, concept, we're going to apply probably mostly to the body for today. So muscles have what's called an action. So a muscle's action is simply the action that it performs. So your bicep, it connects up here and it connects down here. So the action it performs in that connection, it's laying like this. I wonder, maybe I should set the phone somewhere so it's easier. Okay, let's see. Ready? So the action, so the bicep is laying like this. When the bicep contracts, gets shorter. So right now it's long and open. When it gets shorter, it's going to close. That action of closing the bicep, flexing it, is going to close the arm. The forearm will come up. When the bicep relaxes, so see, it's all scrunched up now. So when it relaxes and goes flat, the arm opens. When the bicep crunches and shortens, the arm comes up. So that is the action of the bicep muscle. Now, I can have my arm out and lift it, and my bicep is not moving. So if you put your hand on your bicep and you lift your shoulder, you can tell this muscle right on top, because there's a muscle under the bicep and then there's the triceps. But you can tell that this top muscle, that your bicep, isn't actually activating. There's no action taking place. But when you move your arm this way, you can feel that muscle. It kind of balls up and then it lays flat again. And so you can feel that muscle's action happening. Another way you can feel it is if you just lay your arm down and you put your hand on the muscle. You can clench, twitch, flex, activate that muscle so that it's creating tension. So think of a rubber band connected onto two sticks. So our bones are the sticks, the rubber band is our muscles. So when you stretch, so the rubber band might be loose. And there's a point where the rubber band, where you stretch it and you just start to move the sticks. And if you stretch that rubber band even more, the sticks will move. So our muscles are the same way. There's a point where you can tighten or shorten a muscle, but it hasn't yet performed the action. It has not yet acted out shortening that distance from my hand to my shoulder. It hasn't done the action. It's just created that tension. It's kind of like feeling those end points. I used to ride horses a lot, and my instructor would say, feel. You want to be able to feel the horse's mouth. You don't want to be pulling on it. You don't want an action to happen. But you don't want the reins loose and sloppy where there's no feel. So our muscles are the same way. There's a point where there's no feel. The muscles just relaxed. Nothing going on. And there's a point where you can tighten it, and you can get that feeling where if I tighten it anymore, it's going to cause some kind of action. So you can do that. That's a way to train your muscles. You can train it with what I like to call mind mapping. So our brain is like a computer. It knows how to do everything. It knows how to make our heart beat. It knows how to make us breathe. It knows how to activate and deactivate every single muscle and system and everything in our body. Our brain just knows how to do that because that's the way God designed it. Now, our conscious mind does not know how to do everything, which is okay. We don't have to, because our brain knows how to do it. So, but we can learn and we can mind map. So if you are struggling with chronic pain, one thing that you want to do, or I like to do, is create a mind map. Chronic pain if it's in muscles and joints, is typically caused from a muscle being overused for an extended period of time. And then because of that, it hasn't learned to rest. It hasn't learned to go back to this point where there's no tension. It is always slightly tense. It is always feeling the end. It's feeling the reins. It's feeling that connection. People with hypermobility can do this because their joints and ligaments are overstretchy, and so one of the ways the body compensates is by creating a constant tension. But that can lead to chronic pain because now you're constantly pulling on those bones, and bones have nerves too. And so when you're constantly pulling on those bones, it's going to begin to lead to pain, sensitivity, inflammation, things like that. So now that we understand what the action of the bicep is, it closes, and when the bicep turns off, it opens. So an opposite action muscle is going to be a muscle that does the opposite of that action. So if this one does like this, the opposite of closing is opening. So opposite action muscles are typically on the opposite side of the body. So if the bicep closes and it's on the top, the muscle that opens is going to most likely be on the bottom, our triceps. So if you're doing a tricep workout and you have your arm here and you're holding weights, like that's a lot of times how they'll do tricep workouts, or at least how I learned. So you'll hold a weight and you'll open. You'll lift your arm and open, and that is going to activate your tricep muscle on the opposite side, and its action is opposite of the bicep. It's an opposite action muscle. So to do an opposite action, it's literally the opposite of whatever action you're doing. You can think of it in the spiritual realm too. If you're being greedy, the opposite of greedy is generous. So you can't be greedy and generous at the same time. Just like you can't have your arm closed and open at the same time. They are opposites. So in our brain, the way our brain is designed is our brain is designed to not be allowed to activate closed and open at the same time. So if I open, this cannot be closed. That's like the brain logic. If then. So if I open, this can't be closed. However, if the muscles are not used to relaxing and lengthening, it will open, but it will hurt. It will pull because those muscle fibers are like that rubber band. And have you ever had a really tight rubber band and like you can stretch it and stretch it and work it and eventually it'll be looser. We don't want to do that with our muscles because all of that stretching and stretching and stretching and forcing it and forcing it and forcing it is going to pull on our bones and cause excess pain, excess inflammation, excess. So instead, what we want to do is teach that muscle how to release. Right now it's up, tight, tense feeling. We want to teach it the opposite. We want to teach it rest, relaxation, opening, and it has to learn to trust that you're not going to just yank it and stretch it and pull it and generate more pain. And so one of my favorite ways to teach this is the mind mapping. So you hold that muscle, poke it somewhere, wherever, and you practice activating it. So the way you activate it is that twitch. So you're going to figure out where in your brain is that neural pathway to only activate right where your fingers are touching. So like a lot of times if you can't find it, or if a lot of the muscles are connected, because the brain will put things in generic boxes. So like arm, this is the box for all of the neural pathways that control her left arm. And so now you're asking the brain, hey, I don't want to move my whole arm. I just want to move my bicep. And my brain's like, well, it's in here somewhere. And so you'll ask it, and it might kind of like, and you're like, your brain's trying to go in that box, and it's poking all the little buttons. And it's like, is this one? Nope. That one? Nope. That one. And so like, sometimes it takes a little bit. But once you've found it in that box, then you tell your brain, I want right here to twitch, to flex, to activate. And so once you can find it and you're only moving right where your fingers are, then you're going to tense and hold for 6 seconds. And then you're going to try to fully release. So you're finding that spot in your brain. This is the spot that leads to there. And I'm going to hold that spot. You're building that muscle memory. And remembering, you're teaching your brain, this is the button that controls this spot in my body. Then you're going to release it. You're going to try to fully release it and relax it and lengthen it. And a lot of times I'll like to especially if it's in my arm, I'll stretch it and flex it a little bit. Then you're going to twitch it again, except this time, however hard you did it the first time, you're going to try to do it 50% the strength. So if you twitched it really hard, now this time you're going to try to do it 50% that strength. So you're teaching your brain how to find that connection. You're going to hold it for 6 seconds, then you're going to release. Same thing. Twitch it again, except this time only 50% as hard as you did the last time. So eventually it's just kind of barely going to move. And it's just that tiniest activation, and that's your brain learning, yep, this is the button. Yep, this is the button. Yep, this is the button. So each time you twitch, hold, release, your muscle fibers are going to lengthen a little bit more. And they're going to learn how to lengthen and lay out flat. Instead of that constant holding, they're going to learn how to be restful and stop pulling. So when they've learned how to do that, that's when you activate that opposite action, now they're not pulling, they're releasing. And this can, if you do it too fast when you haven't practiced, it can trigger old muscle memory patterns. It can say, oh snap, she's moving her arm really fast. We better hold on. And so when you're activating the opposite action, I very highly recommend deep breathing. Even maybe holding onto that muscle. And if you feel that, so like if you're trying to open, if you feel the opposite action muscle, which in this case would be your bicep, trying to lock up, it's trying to keep your arm from dropping, flopping, pulling on bones, and hurting yourself. Thank you, body. I appreciate that. But right now, body, we're doing something different. So I see what you're doing. I hear you. I hear your concerns. I've done that in the past. Those are legitimate concerns. But today, we're doing something different, body. So please, take a breath. It's okay, body. We're doing it real slow. Nothing heavy. Nothing like painful. Nothing quick. I like to kind of wiggle my fingers while I'm doing this to tell that muscle like, hey, it's okay. Just let go. No big deal. If you hold that spot, and I imagine taking a big breath in, and when I breathe, I imagine all those nice little oxygen cells, or I don't know what they are. I imagine them as little oxygen bubbles, and I imagine the little oxygen bubbles, they're usually blue, taking oxygen to those things and like blowing it up so that it can like open up, like giving it some more air and letting it get those healthy nutrients that it needs to like feel safe to open up and relax. So that's a little bit of mind mapping. That's a little bit of opposite action. So the body is full of opposite action. This side goes up, this side goes down. Now you can force this side to go up, but on average, if you raise one side, it will lower the other. My body's a little out of whack, you know. And so that's just like the body is kind of like a unit. So it's full of opposite actions. If I'm leaning forward, my back, like this front is actually... So right now, 2 rubber bands. Both rubber bands are straight. Neither of them are shortened. If I curl forward, these front muscles are all shortening. So if you look at my back and it was full of rubber bands, they would all be stretching out. So they are all pulling on bones in order to stretch out so that my front can curl up. So these are pulling on the bones, and if these aren't releasing and resting, then they're stretching, getting longer, and pulling on the bones. Now, if I've taught my muscles how to relax and respond, some of them are, some of them aren't. I can feel which ones are causing tension and pain because they aren't releasing. Then those will cause tension and pain. So those are the opposite actions. So as I lean, the opposite is for that. So as I close, that's what I guess is easier, is open and close. So the back opens up as the front closes. The front opens up as the back arches and closes. The same thing with our hips and our glutes. So our hips and glutes, opposite sides of the body, opposite action muscles. As my hips open and get open, my glutes are going to have to tighten in order to push up so that these can open. Now, as I close these, because right now they're open, as I sit, they're going to close. These are going to close, and now my glutes are going to stretch open. And so this is where you can get a lot of low back pain. If you do a lot of sitting, all these muscles in the front are constantly closed, holding on so that you can sit up, and they're holding you in a sitting position. But when these are closed, that means all of these in the low back and the glutes, they're all open. And if they're open for an extended period of time without any rest, they're going to be pulling constantly and causing pain. So that's where the glutes can get really weak, because if you do a lot of sitting, your inner hips are going to be really strong. They're going to be so strong because you be sitting all the time. So they got to hold you in that sitting position. So they're going to be super strong. So then when you stand up, they're going to want to stay in that position because you train them to be strong. And these have not been trained to be strong at all. So now, if you want to stand up straight, you're going to have to force them. And a lot of times, you're really just pulling. You aren't actually relaxing, releasing, and opening the hips. And so then you'll get a lot of low back pain. That's where you see a lot of elderly people curled over like this. And they walk like this because those are all tight. And so they're trying to compensate and stand up straight, but all of these are still tight, and they haven't learned to relax, release, and open them up, and how to activate the opposite action muscles. So these are used to activating, just like if this was the bicep and this is the tricep. This is used to activating, but it's not used to relaxing and resting, and so this isn't used to activating. So that's where you have to train the back to activate so that the front can release. Because if the back isn't activating, if those muscles aren't strong, the front is going to say, that's not safe. We're going to fall. We're going to get hurt. We have to stay strong so that we don't get hurt. And so you have to teach the back how to activate your hamstrings, your glutes, your low back muscles. So wherever in the front, opposite action. So with our legs, so this is considered a closing motion. Because see, this muscle here, it's getting closer to the body. My knee is closing closer to the body. So when the leg closes closer to the body, just like a bicep closing closer, the opposite action is going to be on the opposite side, and it's going to be that opening. Now, you can put your leg down, but see, my torso didn't open. There was no opening. Sometimes people actually bend down more because they're forcing their leg down, but they aren't actually releasing that muscle. And if the muscle isn't releasing and relaxing and lengthening, then they're going to get curled over. So for the leg muscles, they attach in the hips and around the knees. For the back of the leg muscles, they attach on the base of the pelvis and then down in the knees area and on the bone. So if your leg isn't strong opening, then that's where, if you take your leg like this, you straighten your knee, don't hyperflex it. If you straighten your knee, you'll feel all of these hamstrings should get tight because you're straightening, that's closing for the back. You're closing those muscles. And then as you start to lift your foot off the ground, your glutes should close. That'll create opening in the front. Now, if you start to get out of balance when you're trying to do this, that's probably because these are not resting and opening. They're trying to stay closed and tight, which is going to throw you off balance because you're trying to do two opposite commands in your brain at the same time. And your brain is like, error, that's not how this works. So for opposite action training for like the glutes and hamstrings and hips, I like to lay on my back. I'll put something under my knees, something firm, because the bones, the muscles won't turn off unless the bones turn on. So if you're trying to like get this to go a little, like expedite it, give it yourself some pressure, something to push against that your bones can feel, so that your muscles realize you're not going to fall if they turn off. Because if they've been in chronic holding for a long time, they won't believe you that it's safe to turn off because you've told them that before and it got them hurt. So why should they believe you this time? So you have to retrain your body to trust you that you're not going to hurt it. And so one of the ways to do that is to give it the support it needs. So I will put something under my knees. I like to put my knees actually like up on a couch or on a chair or something like that. That way I have something to push down and against. But then, just like we did with the bicep, where we did that mind mapping, where we clenched and released and clenched and released, you can do that with your legs too. So you will kind of learn to fire and activate. Okay, if I push right here, what action is required? Sometimes it takes a lot of movement. Like, do I have to open my leg? Do I have to twist it this way? What movement gets this spot to tighten? And if you haven't used it in a while, it might take a while to find it, but persistence is key. And so you can do it. You'll get there. But so that's the idea of opposite action in the body. And when we do a pattern for an extended period of time and we aren't balancing it out, we're going to be out of balance and our body is going to hurt. And so we have to retrain it, mind map, and find that opposite action and strengthen it. So I like to ask myself, what motion am I doing? Well, I'm leaning forward. Okay, so the opposite of leaning forward is leaning back. Okay, did I lean back or did I open? Because that's where leaning forward, what is closed? I can lean my chest backwards without actually opening my hips. And so you really have to practice your awareness. And it'll take a while. But if you know what your goal is, if your goal is to open and rest, you'll figure it out. So remember your goals. Remember opposite actions. So if the goal is to open, what's keeping it closed? Where is it closed? Well, where's the opposite of that? Am I closed in my shoulders? Well, the opposite would be the back of my shoulders. Am I closed in my knee? Well, then, it's like, so it's like, where am I closed that I need to open? And then be gentle, be slow, be patient. Self-compassion is going to be really necessary. Breathing, lots and lots of deep breathing, because your body is going to feel like you're fighting it. Because that's what you're trying to get your body to trust you, but your body doesn't trust you because you're in so much pain. And you're the one that got your body in that pain because you're the one in control of your body. And now there might have been an accident, but after the accident, you were in charge of repair and healing and taking good care of it. And even if you didn't know what to do, your body doesn't care. Your body's like, we don't care if you knew what to do or not. You still hurt us. And so now we don't trust you. We live with you, but we don't trust you. And so you have to go slow. You have to teach your body to trust again. And I know in the past you had to do certain things to survive, but you're not there anymore. You're right here. And right here, right now, we can relearn these things. We can take that time. And even if it's 2 minutes, even if it's 2 seconds, in those 2 seconds, be fully present, be fully compassionate, be fully accepting of your body's limitations, the messages it's telling you, and thank it for telling you. because in the past we might not have listened. And so the fact that it's still willing to tell us is a step. So I love you guys, very obviously. Jesus loves you more. And he designed our bodies to be beautiful, wonderful things. So let's learn how to use them and be responsible with them the way he designed. Have a great day.